Good evening, everyone, to the Plan Commission meeting for the August 15, 2023. So the first order is to call to the order to the meeting. So do we have quorum? Yes, we do. Okay. So first of all, I want to apologize that we are all here in this room, but we are still working in the chamber. We are updating our technology, and we are still working with that. So I'm sorry that we are all have to be in this meeting, but it's gonna be. I think we are gonna be okay. So thank you. So the next in the agenda is the approval of the minute. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Any question, comment?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Any question, comment? No? All of the favor of approving the minutes for the July 18 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. So next, we have public appearances for non-agenda items, and we have someone that wants to speak. And I want to remember that so if you want to speak, you need to go to, where is the seat that we have? There, besides Shelley, or here, you have another chair, empty chair. And then you have 3 minutes per topic. We are going to keep track of your the 3 minutes, okay? So when you're close or done, I'm going to say your 3 minutes are up, okay? So we have a person, David Haight, to this. He wishes to speak for non-agenda items. So where is? Okay. You whatever you feel comfortable. Yeah, there. Yeah.
So I'm David Haight, 5855 Woods Edge Road, and I'm here to talk about stormwater. So under the Clean Water Act, in urbanized areas, to discharge water, stormwater runoff into waters of the state can only occur if you have a permit.
It's all right by me.
So what governs that is this thing.
You're on mute. You're unmuted, so don't say anything. You're unmuted, so don't say anything. Just read when it's your turn.
We can hear you. Can you unmute yourself, please?
Are you talking to me?
I don't know. Are you talking to us, Ms. Mayor?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh.
Can you unmute
okay.
until I call your name?
Yeah.
Thank
I'm Steve Cloyd.
Yes, but
I'm
we
Steve
are
Cloyd.
we are discussing another item now.
All right, that's fine. Excellent.
Okay, thank you. So okay, David, continue.
So under the Clean Water Act, you need a permit in urbanized areas. Since 2004, you need a permit to discharge stormwater runoff into waters of the state within the city of Fitchburg boundaries. This document is that permit. This defines the law that the city must ensure that its own discharges into the water of the state from the city-owned public stormwater system, and for all construction that it permits in the land development process, it is required under the terms of this right here to meet these requirements. And in fact, what happened is the DNR has delegated its regulatory authority for the city of Fitchburg, the Clean Water Act, to the city itself. In this regard, the ordinances are immaterial. This is the standard of the law that must be met. And what are the things in here that our ordinances do not address? They don't address NR 103, wetland water quality standards. If there's a new or increased point source discharge into a wetland, then there's a process called NR 103, which is required to be run for the permit to be issued either to the city or when the the applicant goes to the DNR, they will file that. They're not allowed, if there's a new point source discharge, they're not allowed to file for the standard quick general permit. They're supposed to be kicked into another lane where the impacts, potential impacts to the wetlands are considered. The 75-foot buffer from the wetland zoning is wholly insufficient to meet the requirements of this. The other things, the Dane County Water Quality Plan is part of the Clean Water Act. HARPAC is an agent of the DNR, and it requires that the city run an environmental impact study if any development occurs within an environmental corridor or discharges into an environmental corridor to make sure that the environmental integrity and functions of that corridor are not significantly adversely impacted. Rock River PMDLs. Rock River is extra polluted, and those levels of total suspended solids and phosphorus must be reduced. The permit came out in 2019. Our ordinances have not been updated.
Okay, David, your 3 minutes are up. Thank you. Okay, so next, we are going to review the agenda. Any comments for the agenda? No? Okay, so we are going to start with the first item in our agenda. It's 5A. It's a public hearing and consideration of Ordinance 2023-0-10 and Plan Commission Resolution PCR-01-23. It's adopting a recommendation, the Spring 2023 amendment to the Comprehensive Plan, amending map 4.3 future land use plan map for property associated with 2735 Rimrock Road, specifically from LDR, is low density residential, to medium density residential. So I'm gonna open the public hearing. So do you want to present the?
I can do the memo. I can do the memo first, right?
Yeah, first,
Okay.
and then we talk. We call the people. Okay.
Okay, yep, we can do that. So I will speak briefly from the memo to Plan Commission. This proposal was a revision of a proposal postponed from the June Plan Commission meeting. So this proposal has come forward to Plan Commission in June. The original proposal was to amend to high-density residential. And the new proposal is to amend to medium-density residential. This change was due to feedback from the neighborhood at the Plan Commission hearing. The comprehensive plan states that amendments to the plan can be processed no more than twice per year. This is our first process to amend. The minor this proposal of a minor comprehensive plan amendment proposes that 2 parcels located at the corner of Rimrock and Maloney would be reassigned to a future land use from low-density residential to medium-density residential. The proposal anticipates a future development of approximately 20 residential units, which would be consistent with the medium-density residential future land use. The currently, and then in addition, the current proposal is for approximately 2,500 square foot of space for a daycare. The surrounding properties on the east side of Rimrock are all similarly currently designated as low-density residential. Immediately across on the west side of Rimrock, the properties are designated as business. And the Southdale Neighborhood Plan assigns a land use designation as urban residential district, along with the other properties on the east side of Rimrock. This designation encourages higher density residential design that would include mixed use, live, work, townhouses, mid-rise condos. And the proposed development is consistent with this future land use designation in the Southdale neighborhood plan. I think I'll just leave it at that. Go ahead. Oh, I should just say, I should mention, the commission will need to review the amendment and then determine whether they would like to recommend approval of the comprehensive plan amendment. And we do need to take two motions this evening, one on the Plan Commission Resolution PCR 0123, and then also a recommendation to council on ordinance 2023-010.
Okay, so thank you, Diana. And we have several people that they want to speak on this matter, so I'm going to be calling you. This is the chair, 3 minutes. First person is Mark Shevesta. He wishes to speak in opposition of the above matter. Can you say your complete name and address, please?
My name is Mark Shvesta. I live at 2930 Salem Drive in Madison, directly behind the proposed zoning change in property. I am speaking in opposition to development of the land as outlined. The infrastructure of the neighborhood itself it isn't scalable for a large project, even a medium project back there. There's no more room on Maloney or Rimrock or Salem to accommodate the increased traffic between a large number of residents and homeowners in the surrounding area. And because of that, we would be continually getting in each other's way for access on the minimal roads available in the neighborhood. For 26 years, I've lived in the neighborhood, and there was hope after Phoebe Maloney moved to assisted living that there would be a steward of the land taking over. There were plans for a church at one point, and we saw the benefits of what the church would bring to the community and the surrounding area. There was significant green space in their plan. I don't see that with the current plan. And in fact, I don't see available parking for all the adults who would be living in this new development behind me, which would force them into our neighborhood. And as we all know, in Wisconsin, it's alternate side parking for half a year. That would create problems with getting our streets cleaned, and the functionality of the neighborhood as a whole would decline with that large number of people now living in the neighborhood as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Luke Hare. Here? Yes. He wishes to speak in support of the above matter.
Yeah, Luke Heyer. I live at 780 Alpine Parkway in Oregon. Born and raised in Fitchburg. I own 1 acre of land directly adjacent to the proposed area to the north. And I'm in support of this because I do feel that this is an area that, if you look at a map, it needs to have more density. Having 3 single-family homes spread across 5 or 6 acres is not an efficient use of land, especially 3/4 of a mile from the Beltline. This area is going to grow. It's going to become more commercial. It's going to become more densely populated. So I think that medium residential is definitely a good compromise between having 3 homes spread across 6 acres and having, the scary 7-story skyscraper, whatever could be there. One of my concerns, though, is if this area gets developed without the foresight of the 3 acres directly to the north of it, you could really create some issues developing those other 3 acres. And you could end up with 2 single-family homes spread across 3 acres, 3/4 of a mile from the belt line, which is, again, not a very good use of the space. So I would request, and I don't know if this is the right time to get on record with these types of requests, that there is at least traffic easements and utility easements so that you don't create a 3-acre island of underdeveloped land that can never really be used in the future. So that's my primary concern. Nick, who owns the 2 acres to the north of me, is not here. He was at the last meeting. We're on the same page. I'm not technically speaking on his behalf, but I know that we do both feel that same way. So that's our primary concern.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Next, Diane Pease, she wishes to speak in opposition.
I live at 86 Maloney Drive, which is right next to the planned development that was Phoebe's land. I know that Phoebe was very proud of her land and would be appalled at the amount of people or building that was planned for that land. I do have some comments on the drainage. We are going to have problems because this, as I stated the last time, the city did not make them put in drainage, sewer drainage up there, and it all comes down Maloney Drive from the housing development up above. I also want to know how far they are going to build from the lot line, my lot line, and I would like to make another request, because this is, and I am objecting to the whole thing because it is a single-family home development area, both in the city of Madison and Fitchburg and what was the town of Madison. But I would like to have them have to build a fence between my land and the houses so that there is a little bit of privacy, that I don't have children coming over the fence, which they're kids, they play. And I do have a dog and have had dogs, so I have a fence there. But I would like to have them build a fence that blocks the vision, just to get a little, so that there is privacy on the land and they have privacy.
Okay, thank you. Next is Tyrone Buckingham. He wishes to speak in opposition. Can you tell us your address, too?
My name is Tyrone Buckingham. I live at 81 Maloney Drive. It's across the street from where this is all going to happen. I'm in opposition because of, like Diane said, the rainwater. There's no sewers there, so it's not, where's the water gonna go? And as you take away the wetlands, that water's not gonna be absorbed, it's just gonna come out onto the street. And it's gonna create a bigger problem when it rains heavily, the street's already back up as it is. I also don't like the thought of having it be, I don't want it to be medium density or high density. I'll take medium over high, of course, but I'm against all of it. I think it should be single-family homes. It's basically what it's designed for. I know Luke's talking about building it up and the growth and all that, but there's plenty of other space around us for that growth to happen. You know, they don't have to build it in the middle of neighborhoods. So I don't like the thought of it at all. There needs to be more thought taken into the impacts of what they're doing. And I'm hoping that we're looking into the future, because like I said before, what if this doesn't go through, but the ball's already started rolling because we've moved it to medium density, and then Luke, who's in favor of developing the area, says, you know what, it's not gonna meet my standard, but it's medium density and I want high density and it's not gonna meet my standard, so he holds off and then he sells it to somebody else. They don't get what they want, they sell it to somebody else, and then those 2 more lots that aren't bought are bought by the same person and they decide to build it all up. Then what do? You know, nobody's thinking about the future that and impacts that this could have later. So I just don't agree with it. And I know they're talking about putting a daycare in there, right? Daycares fail. So what happens if daycares can't pay the rent? What does that business space become then? Is it gonna guarantee to stay at a daycare? Or is it gonna become a liquor store or some other undesirable store that could go there? A vape shop, whatever? You know, then what? We have no say in the matter because the ball's already started rolling. So I don't like the thought of a daycare because like I said, it's not gonna stay a daycare. I don't care what you think, it's not gonna stay a daycare. So those are my major concerns. So, thanks.
Thank you, sir. So next we're gonna go to Steve Cloyd. Steve? 1 second, Steve.
Hold on.
Steve. There? 1 second.
I can't unmute him. Oh, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, now
Yeah,
we
now,
have it.
yes.
Sorry.
Am I on okay? Okay. My name is Steve Cloyd. I and my brother George live at 2840 Clawson Street, right off of Rimrock Road. And we are in opposition to the development of the land. As I mentioned the last time we spoke on June 20th, we're particularly concerned about the inflow and outflow of traffic that comes up and down Rimrock Road every day. It's hundreds of cars each way, morning and afternoon. And we are extremely worried that this will only increase the volume of traffic up and down the road. It's already a very unwise and unsafe traffic situation in our opinion. We would like to see the land remain as close to its status as possible. Low density, we're not even sure what that really means. As the gentleman indicated before, you know, wants to keep that land from being, if a daycare fails, wants to keep somebody else from moving in, that creates even more problems. This is a single family household area, and that's the way it really ought to be considered. You need to consider the feelings and the sentiments of people who have lived here for 30-some years, as we have. And single family housing is fine. That's what it has been. We're really concerned about the inflow of more traffic. This is the last nearby available to provide any sort of natural sound barrier from traffic noise and vehicle emissions. And we're also particularly worried that this development will add to the neighborhood tax levy. Our own property experienced a steep bump in taxes this year. Given that we are both senior citizens on fixed incomes, this is a source of considerable stress. We ask that the members of the commission please be sensitive to the real concerns of people who have lived here for a very long time. And I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Steve. Next is Harvey Mattis. He wishes to speak he answer question if needed. So, do you want to speak, Harvey?
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Harvey Mathis. I've lived since 1979 at 95 Maloney Drive, which is right across the Maloney's from the parcel in question. I remember when Phoebe was still living there, as Diana stated, she was very proud of the open green space that she was able to maintain and add a level of peace and quiet to the neighborhood that obviously none of the Indian Springs development was there. It was all cornfield and everything. So we've put up with that. It's in another jurisdiction. It's the city of Madison. It actually was that development that stimulated the creation of Fitchburg as a city from a town status that it was previously. We would like to make sure that we can do everything we can to mitigate the density of population that is being proposed. I note that on the assessment that in the future land use, there is not even a medium density that's listed in the bottom. I suspect it's sort of an oversight.
It is my oversight, I apologize.
And so that already kind of perks my interest as to, you know, some of the oversights that sometimes get put into the actual documents, and then we down the road. I definitely support almost all of the comments that have been made, especially the neighbor on Salem Drive about the impact on the neighborhood. I would suggest that we need to have, and I know we had a pretty close look at the plans that the developer was looking to put up. And it's my understanding he was going to downsize that. I have not seen what that's going to result in right now, but I'm a little worried about many times if we don't see what the complete picture is, it's pretty hard to give your approval or disapproval to any project. And that's just the way I've seen many city projects down through time.
Your study makes sense.
Yes.
Thank you. So next is David Bambro. He wishes
Close
to.
enough.
Huh?
Close enough.
Okay, yeah.
My name's David Bambro, and I live at 2819 Rimrock Road, and I'm opposed to this idea. For one thing, we don't have the infrastructure there. When I was coming here today, it took me at least 5 minutes to get out of my driveway, and it's just gonna get worse if we keep adding houses to the area. And ask yourself, would you wanna live next to it? Really? I mean, you should ask yourself that. That's all I have
That's
to
it. Okay,
say.
thank you. Next is Tina Bambro. I don't know, Tina, do you want, is she here?
I'm here.
Oh, do you want to speak?
I guess I can't.
Okay.
I don't really want to, but I will. So at one point, I live at 81 Maloney Drive, right across the street there. At one point in time, they talked about maybe doing a retention pond at Maloney and Rimrock area to collect some of that rainwater. I don't know if that's still in the proposal or not. But my worry is, number one, mosquitoes. In our neighborhood, we have tons of mosquitoes. You drive home and you get swarms of mosquitoes. I don't know if there's any idea of them spraying in the area. Because we also have Lake George, we have the marsh back there. It's really bad. The other thing with that is, with the daycare being built there, are they gonna be having any fencing around the daycare to keep the kids safe? And if this daycare is approved, I also have a concern on if the plan will change and it might become a McDonald's or a bar or anything like that. I am opposed of any type of building as far as business goes. And My other concern is some of my neighbors that are directly next to them as far as privacy. I do think that a fence should be made for them. And a few other questions I have are sidewalks gonna be required for us on Maloney? Some of us have health issues and some of us are gone during the winter and some of us have really long driveways. To add sidewalks to will be a really hard task for some of us. And then also if this is gonna increase our taxes. Nothing has really been said about anything as far as how being a homeowner right there, if what expenses are we gonna have to take in, such as the sidewalks or increased taxes. I guess those are kind of my main concerns, and I am worried about if this is approved, how the whole area, the block is gonna extend to bigger things, you know, with the next two neighbors trying to sell their property off. And I mean, I feel like eventually it's just gonna go all the way down Remrock and you're gonna lose that whole neighborhood. And there's a lot of people there that have been there for many years. I mean, my grandma and grandpa built the house on Remrock Road. And I just feel at some time that is gonna be torn down because once we start these projects, it's just gonna go all the way down Remrock Road. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Tina. Next is Jay Allen. He wishes to speak in opposition.
Hi, I'm Jay Allen. I'm from the Fitchburg City Council. I represent District 3, which is the district that this proposal is going into. This is the second one of these projects that I've had to come to the Plan Commission for this year, where we're dealing with an inexperienced developer who doesn't want to do the work to actually get something done. After the last Plan Commission meeting where this item was discussed, I suggested to the developer that she needed to have another neighborhood meeting because the one neighborhood meeting that they had prior to the submission of the previous resolution was 100% opposition from the neighborhood, which you're hearing again tonight. I don't understand why there is a desire to just bulldoze over a neighborhood and not work with them at all. But to me, this is very unprofessional. It's been 2 months since the last Plan Commission meeting, and this developer has not reached out to the neighborhood at all. And that irritates me to no end. That is not the way things are supposed to happen here. I also don't understand why the mayor, who was at that one neighborhood meeting, went ahead and proposed this without having it go through some more vetting with the neighborhood. I told the developer that I would not sponsor this Plan Commission or this amendment to the comprehensive plan because they didn't have any support from the neighborhood. And this is exactly what happened back in January when I came before you about the other project that was at the corner of MM and Clayton Road. So this is way premature. There's a lot more work that needs to be done with the neighborhood before anything can even be proposed at this point. And I would strongly encourage you, Plan Commission members, to vote this down tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. So next is Chad Ali. We will tag team this one.
We are daughter and father and daughter.
Okay.
My full name is Chaudhry Ali. My profession, basically, I am an attorney. I've been in the legal field for 40 years. And I'm assisting my daughter in this project. I want to address some of the facts. Rather, I want to correct some of the facts. Alan said we did not contact anybody from the neighborhood. My first meeting with the immediate neighbors was on 6th or 7th September 2022. My offer was accepted, my daughter's offer was accepted on August 30th. Just 6 days thereafter, I met my neighbors and I talked to them and I explained to them that we are going to build an apartment building over here. Their response was, no, absolutely no. I do have the plans for the apartment building, but when they said no, I said, okay, no. And after that, even the Elder Allen said that we did not meet within these 2 months. I met my neighbors who were immediate neighbors within that 300 feet of the property. I met them on June 18th after this meeting. We discussed our plans and I told them we have revised the plan. So I have great regard for their concerns and I have tried to address their concerns very thoroughly. Now, most of the objections they're supposing about traffic, drainage, these are the issues which has to be addressed. And they are not one-time issues, they are addressed continuously. Second is, if the daycare is not built, the city council and city is not going to be dissolved after this meeting. The city is there, and for every amendment in any plan, anybody who is in charge of the development will have to go to the city and get the approval. I don't think if the city is approving daycare center and the city can camouflage it as a liquor store. It's the city's duty to keep it as daycare, and I hope nobody can build without city's permission. So that apprehension is just hypothetical. Now, so far as this development is concerned, the Southdale plan was.
Your 3 minutes are up.
Thank
Maybe
you.
your daughter can.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do you want to talk?
Sure, could I take some time?
Yeah, because you have your own 3 minutes.
No, thank you. I think my dad addressed a lot of the historical data around this, but what we're hoping to do is bring in workforce housing, affordable housing to a community that may not have it right now in place, or no plans are in place to offer such an offering, basically. But our goal is to look at the future and see what that area needs. The daycare center is obviously, it's a desire of ours. It's something that the area needs. We have talked to the city in depth about it. We have talked to the planning commission in depth about it. So, like my dad said, changing it to a liquor store, that was never part of the plan. That's never part of the discussion. So, bringing it up to the city and saying, hey, just because our daycare center didn't get approved, let's change this to a completely different scope. We're not thinking like that. We're thinking the development of the city. We're thinking the benefit of the residents. And I think we need to think of a greater good here right now. That's 20 more housing units that are available for young families, for firefighters, teachers, people that are not going to be able to afford the nice multifamily properties that are being brought up in Madison area and the neighboring areas. But they are just as vital to our community as all of our residents right now. And I think we just need to think of the future good that this would bring. That's all I'd like to say.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Aisha? I'm the owner of the 2735 property. Thank you.
Okay, so I think this is the last person. So now we are going to close the public hearing and then we're going to start plan commission discussion, okay? So I am closing the public hearing and then Any questions, comments? Rich?
Urban residential district from the Southdale neighborhood plan, when was that created? The date, I mean, how long has that been in place?
When was the Southdale neighborhood plan? I can look.
2009?
Thank you.
So I have another question.
Yeah.
Have we looked at that plan since 2009 to see how the addition of all of the other high density that's been put in since then impacts the eventual goals of what we're looking for density for this area?
The plan has not been updated.
Because there have been a significant number of apartment complexes added since that time. So I want to make sure we're not getting over a tipping point, but we can save that for.
I think the city is gonna revise that plan now that we approve the creation of the tax incremental district. We are planning to do that. Any other comment? Zach, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I have a question for the applicant who's going to be building here. Can you explain again what your price range is for this affordable housing?
Yes, so we're targeting between, I can come up, sorry. We're targeting in the 350, 375 range
Okay.
as of today.
Even with the lower numbers of units? Because last time I think you said 375 to 400, and now you have less units and it's gone down in price.
Yeah, so again, we have to go through the architectural revised plans again. It does change the building design, but we don't see it having a huge impact. But yes, it might have a little bit of an impact on the cost to us, which would then go to the residents. It's too early to go through the redesign of the architectural plans, and of course it does cost us every time we go through that planning. So as a newer, smaller developer, we haven't gone through the revised designs.
And are these, zero lot line or condo associations?
This is a condo association to meet the city's requirements.
So with a condo association, you're going to have your mortgage, your property taxes, and your condo fees, which typically is not an affordable prospect. Speaking as someone who's going from a house into a condo, hopefully eventually, it's expensive. So what income level, when you say that these are for lower income people to get into the housing market, what income level is someone going to have to be at to be able to afford the pity payment?
So these aren't lower income necessarily, these are workforce housing, so I would say that's something that the city would provide us more guidance on. So the city is looking to offer this as an opportunity for, I wouldn't say lower income, but medium-based income folks. So I don't know what the city's requirements are going to be at that point for the minimum criteria.
Any other comments?
Are we commenting on the entire thing, or are we still in the public hearing?
No, I closed the public hearing.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, we closed.
I guess, the reason I bring that up is that we've had a lot of projects come forward where we talk about that they're going to be affordably priced and that they realize that there's a need for townhouses and there's a need for smaller, more entry level. But, I think if you went and looked online right now on Zillow, you could probably find half a dozen to a dozen single-family homes in Fitchburg that maybe aren't brand new, but are for sale, in the 300 to 325, 375 range. So I wonder, I guess, I want to make sure that we're truly fulfilling the need this time, because I have seen some of these, once the construction is done and all the additional costs go in, end up being 400,000 and 500,000, just by virtue of supply chain issues and economy issues and interest rate issues and things like that. So I don't want to build something that ends up being not what we're expecting it to be. So just speaking from prior experience.
And I second that thought as well. That's my biggest concern here is, down the street, in Terravessa, there's condos for sale for, 400, 410, and it's $3,000 a month to live in those. So, that's a lot of money for a young couple.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't do anything about the interest rates or the inflation or the supply that's in the market right now.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. So,
Okay.
because this would be medium density residential, how would a daycare work in there? Is that part of that, or would that be a conditional use?
We're not quite, I'm not quite sure, what would probably have to happen, it'd probably have to come through zoning as planned development district, is what I would foresee.
For the question on sort of easements, what is our typical setback requirements? And I would assume a fence would be taken care of in an ADR process, so I'm not gonna address
Would
that.
be.
But for setbacks for a building like this, given that, I mean, I think that is a fair concern for the resident who is right next to it in a single-family home going next to a larger property.
Well, our standard setbacks on, single family is a 30-foot front setback and 35 on the back setback. That would have to be something we would have to work out through the zoning process, honestly.
Can I answer this question? Can I answer this question? The concept plan which we have prepared, that says 25 feet setback on every site. So it's almost the same setback which single family homes have.
So one of the question is that Diane asked if we move forward with this project, are you willing to put a fence between your property and her property?
Yes. We have concerns with
And we have talked to, already talked to her, and I am assured we will put a fence.
Carol?
Can we talk about the permitted uses and conditional uses to alleviate the fears regarding the daycare center closing? Because I'm assuming that that would still be zoned MDR on the parcel that the daycare would be on. It would be one of the business or commercial zonings, I would assume. So that people don't have to worry about, is this gonna become a strip joint or a bar or some of the business highway uses? What would you see what would you recommend the zoning to be, and what types of businesses could go in if a daycare center came out?
We haven't gotten very far down the line, but I had envisioned planned development district, and then we could determine what kinds of uses would be allowed.
I will assume that would be more like a professional services, like an office or, something like.
Right, but there would be limitations, and if it were anything, probably less than appropriate to be located near a residential of any zoning class, it's probably not gonna be one of those uses. It's not gonna be a gas station, it's not gonna
Well, that would not be consistent at all with.
So I think that some of the uses that people are concerned about, they don't have to worry about, was my point.
I would agree with you on that.
It might not be a daycare, it could be a chiropractor clinic.
Yes.
That is a much more of an apt, future argument. Does what we did last month with creating a TIF district in this area address any of the, we approved it as a district, what does that mean, and are we even that far into the planning in terms of rainwater runoff, sewage, the streets, the traffic control, all of those things that are typically handled through a TIF, which seems like a very good time for this to be coming forward after last month, but do we have anything that we can speak to, one of the major concerns, which is traffic and rainwater?
There's gonna be a reconstruction of the Maloney Road that the city is gonna do, and this is in the plan.
So is there increased traffic capacity already planned for that road at this point? Do you
I don't know, we need to do a traffic study, I don't know if we'll discuss that.
Certainly, Public Works may require this development to have a traffic analysis.
Especially with the daycare, because you're gonna have drop off and pick up, which is going to intensify right about the time that people are leaving for work and coming home, so that would exacerbate that concern.
I do always have, this comes up every time we look at any kind of proposal like this where, the traffic from these 20 units are going to create such an inconvenience, but there's 3, 4, 5 times that amount in that entire neighborhood. So I always have a hard time when we look at one parcel, you're talking about 20 or 30 residences and how that is gonna somewhat completely tip over where we are with the traffic. So I just point that out for the residents because it comes up all the time. It's an easy argument to make, I would say. Traffic, nobody wants it in their neighborhood. But I do think you need to think about realistically how much would that really impact versus the amount of households already in that immediate area?
Because there are apartment buildings just a block away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's already multifamily housing right there. If there were single family built on these lots, how many single families would fit on it, or would be allowed?
For medium?
For single family, I've never calculated that.
I mean, did somebody say 3?
I thought it's 5 to 9.
Yeah,
It's
5 to
permitted.
9, yeah.
5 to 9 for medium density,
Yeah.
and so less than 5 is,
So you could easily have 8, 9.
Yeah.
it might be
As is.
difficult because because each lot has to have frontage, as we kind of talked about last time. You might be only able to get 3 or 4 at the most.
I was just thinking, if this isn't built and it stays single family, how many more people will be in that area just building single family homes, and and I don't know what those would cost either. I mean, obviously, there's market rate depends on location. I don't know what the market rate are in that neighborhood.
So Terra Vista is a good example. Modeling after that, we initially thought 375 to 400. They started around 375 initially, but with the market right now, they're over the 400 mark. But the single family homes start at the 495 mark, 500, 525, 535. So that's what you'd be looking at, which would not fit what we're trying to do for the community. But yes, it is a good land use if you were to build 5 or less single-family homes at the 550, 575 mark. It just is not what the community in that area needs. I don't think it would be a good fit.
Any other comment, Stephen?
I wrestled with this when I was prepared, looking it over, because I asked about the date of the Southville neighborhood plan in 2009. It was an urban residential district, which is, if I understand it right, it's not low density, it's middle with business mix, right? So, and I agree with some of the arguments that this is close to Madison, close to the Beltline, and there's a lot of arguments for this being done. But I am overwhelmed by the neighborhood opposition. And I've sat in their seats back in like 1970 something when I built next to a cornfield and somebody was trying to build next to me. So I would like to support the neighborhood. This is going to happen eventually. You guys, it's whether it stops today or is accepted today, but this is the long-range plan and it's going to happen. Just accept it sooner or later. But again, whether we approve or disapprove is, that's for later, but basically just want to point that, yeah, this is a reality, so.
I mean, I'm sure 40 years ago, this space was farmland, and now there was single family that came in and been single family for 40 years. At some point, development is gonna come in. So we're trying to make it as responsible of a development as we can with the sentiments of the neighborhood. Could do low.
I think I kind of echo, I'm gonna stop any side comments over there. What Rich had said though, in terms of, usually I have a hard time voting for anything that has this much of a neighborhood opposition. But at the same time, what I usually will say to the neighbors who have the opposition is, as Rich said, it will not end here. That is acreages on Rimrock Road, blocks from the Beltline, in a area that is rapidly growing, both Fitchburg and Madison. That will not nobody's gonna hang on to that and keep it as a nice green space. So that's not the future. And so we've had this, in my time serving on this board, many times where I've said, this is what's before us, it could be this or this. But leaving it as green, open space is not, maybe for this year, but not for 5 years down the road. So I typically kind of have that same approach of, think about, where we're at. If you were to leave it at low density, I could go in, you could go in and build a 9 apartment, 9-unit apartment building. That's without touching anything that we're talking about here today. Would you rather have that or 20, owner occupied houses? There are those things that I try to consider and I wrestle with as, a voting member here. So I just try to put that out as a little bit of, as we've seen these things come before us before, things to think about.
And one more point is, when it does come through, it might not be medium, it might be high density, because anything's possible. I did have a question for Deanna though. There was a note about, there's a retail inclusion housing mix complies with specifications of the Southdale neighborhood plan, and is the reason this plan is not being recommended for revision in conjunction with the comprehensive plan.
Oh, what
Can
we
you
were,
explain
yeah,
that
what we
to me?
were, so there was some question why the minor comp plan amendment, sometimes when a minor comp plan amendment comes forward, we need to modify both the neighborhood plan and the comp plan. In this case, staff does not feel it necessary to modify the Southdale neighborhood plan because as proposed, the proposal is still consistent with the Southdale neighborhood plan. Of course, Southdale was done in conjunction with the town of Madison and the city of Madison, so the future land use categories don't line up exactly with ours.
I just want to say one more thing to the neighbors, because I have absolutely been in your shoes. I live in the Belmar neighborhood, which is adjacent to Allied Drive, and there was a giant field of undeveloped land. And there was a proposal for 450 apartments in that area. And we live in single family. The previous development that had been done in the neighborhood had multifamily scaled down to duplexes, scaled down to single family. So there was a nice transition for us. This would have been 400 apartments right across the street from single family homes. And we were livid. And we threw every arrow, every axe, every thing that we could think of to stop it because we felt the same way. And what I will tell you is the city listened. The city actually put together a better plan for the use on that land. And right now it is an infill development of smaller Habitat for Humanity homes and privately built homes that are on smaller lots that are close together. And it's been a very good addition to the neighborhood. And having that done and getting it approved forever took away the anxiety of having more high density built in that area. So I think that kind of goes to what, we were saying too, is that, at least you will have a known entity. I think your only other unknown entity are those 3 lots that are to the north and what will happen with those. And I think the city has to make some sort of a commitment to the neighborhood that they're going to be careful about what they put in there. There needs to be an appropriate buffer between the single family and any multifamily, even if it's medium density. And that's what I would ask the city to do if we approve this tonight.
Any other comment? No? So we are ready to vote? Okay, I'm gonna ask for roll call, please. So we need to vote each of them, or
Yeah, separately, and we first need.
we approve the ordinance and then
You can do it either way. We listed the Plan Commission resolution first, but you're welcome to switch them around. And we do need to take a motion and a vote on each.
in each? Okay, so we are, so I need a motion to approve the ordinance. Steve, can you do it?
I will move to approve resolution PCR-1-23.
Okay, so now, we are gonna do roll call.
Okay. Stephen Heller,
Yes.
Rich Tate,
Yes.
Shelley Malowski, I'm sorry, Shelley.
Yes.
Zach Billings,
Yes.
Carol Poole,
Aye.
Huh?
Do I say you too?
I think I have to vote too.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Mayor?
Yes. Okay, the motion carries, approved. Okay, next we need to do the ordinance.
I'll move to approve ordinance 2023-0-10.
Second.
Okay, so. roll call.
Stephen?
Aye.
Rich?
Aye.
Shelley?
Aye.
Zach?
Aye.
Carol?
Aye.
And Mayor?
Aye. The motion carries. So thank you, and we are gonna take all the recommendation that the neighbors brought today to us, work with the developer. And then ask the developer that all the next steps that coming forward with this project, you communicate with the neighbors. So what is the next step with this project now? You have to do
The next step will be to work through the rezone and the certified survey.
But then we have to do 30 days notification, and it's
Oh,
gonna come
yes,
to
I'm sorry.
council.
Yes, on this, you're right. So there's a 30-day notification, and then this will come to council. The minor comp plan amendment will come to council on October 10th.
October 10th.
And we will do a full round of notifications, full public notice in the paper and then mailing also to each of you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we move to item 5B.
I think so.
Can you talk out in the public? Thank you. So next is item 5B, certified survey map CS-2516-23, request by Gerald Mant to approve a certified survey map in order to subdivide one buildable residential lot and consolidate a farm from two existing agricultural tracts on property associated with 2539 County Highway MM. So do I have a motion?
First.
Huh?
Want me to do staff?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go ahead and.
Oh, yeah, I forget that, yeah.
I'll go ahead and do the staff report for us. So this is, we'll take the two together, the certified survey map and the rezone request. We do have to do a public hearing on the rezone.
Okay, so we open the public hearing now?
However you want to do it.
Okay, so I'm gonna open the public hearing and consideration of rezone RZ-2517-23, request by Gerald Mann to rezone property from AX exclusive agriculture to RL low density residential in order to develop a new single family residence and consolidate parcels for the existing farm associated with 2539 County Highway MM. So I open the public hearing. So anyone wants to, do we have anyone from 5D? Yes, we have. 5D? Yes, so.
Oh,
No.
We're on
5C.
B and C
Sorry.
right now, we're on B and C.
So anyone, are you part of the, do you want to speak? No.
I'm Gerald.
Gerald, do you want to speak? No?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
There
You
are
don't
questions.
have to. Yeah, Gerald, okay. Okay, so I close the public hearing and now, yeah.
Okay, so this is a certified survey map and a rezone, and this is a request that falls under the rural residential development criteria, and we call that the RRDC. So I'll just kind of walk through the proposed project. This is a site that is zoned AX and RL, and the applicant is requesting to create a new lot, Lot 2, for a single-family residential home. The properties are currently described by meets and bounds. The proposal is to rezone and subdivide for this new single-family residence. Under the RRDC criteria from the comprehensive plan, the required criteria under the RRDC includes compatibility with adjacent farm operations, avoiding environmental sensitive areas. Lot shape shall be depth to width ratio of 2:1. Woodland cover, a forestry management plan is required for improvements on wooded and partially wooded lots, and then protection of any heritage trees. Under the RRDC, there's 4 criteria that may be waived. The history of tillage, residential infill, lot size of 1.5 acres or less, and then erosion potential, avoiding slopes greater than 12%. The properties, the northern part of the properties, including the future single-family residence, are outside of the future urban development area. The southern portions of the properties are located in the East Highway 14 future urban development area. The proposed single-family residence on Lot 2 would lie south of the existing home at 2517 County Highway The proposed subdivision requires the use of a claim in conformance with the RRDC. The parent parcel where the proposed lot 1 and 2 are located is Base Farm 19. Base Farm 19 does not have any remaining claims. However, the owners of Base Farm 19, the Mants, are also owners of Base Farm 31, which has 5 claims, 2 of which may be used under the RRDC. The owners are requesting to transfer one of those 2 claims to this property, leaving Base Farm 31 with 1 claim that may be used under the RRDC. The remaining 3 claims must be used under the Rural Residential Development Cluster in compliance with Section 22-611. So I'll break down a little bit about how staff has reviewed this. The proposed single-family lots comply with the following required criteria: compatibility with adjacent farm operations. We have not identified any environmentally sensitive areas, such as wetlands. Lot shape does conform to the required 2:1, and we have found no impact to heritage trees. The applicants were asked to provide additional information regarding the types and sizes of trees on site, and so staff does require additional information to determine if a forestry management plan is required under the criteria D of the RRDC. The proposed single-family lot complies with one of the criteria that may be waived, and I have the chuckle there because Egan Rural identified that actually this project would need to waive 3 of the criteria that may be waived, and that would be history of tillage. There has been some tillage on the site, and C, lot size is slightly greater than 1.5. You can see that the lot size is slightly, ever so slightly greater than 1.5. And then item D would also need to be waived, erosion control potential, which also refers to the size of the lot being above 1.5. The Egan Rural did approve the certified survey. Staff recommends approval of the certified survey map and the rezone. Egan Rural did approve both with the addition that D, item D, under items that must be waived would also need to be waived. I know that was kind of confusing.
Yeah, well.
Okay,
so we should waive the 4 of them?
So there's, and I popped it up there too, there's 4 criteria that may be waived.
Okay.
And Shelley quite rightly pointed out that we would need to waive A, C, and D. So that modification would happen under item 11 of the CSM. We would have to also waive A, C, and D under item 11. So that's my, I know that there's lots of questions on this.
Well, we still have one, so we still have 12 conditions for the CSM, correct?
We do, yep.
And 3 conditions for the rezone.
Okay, so any comments, questions? Richard, are you ready?
Should I make a motion?
I don't know, everyone is ready to vote? Okay, so yes.
I move approval of certified survey map CS-2516-23 with the 12 conditions set forth by staff.
Second.
Any other question? No? All those in favor of the certified survey map is?
So the adding D is then considered part, it's not what's written here, but you just amended the staff conditions.
Yeah, we
So
have,
we'll,
yeah.
so we're okay to vote.
Okay.
Yeah, I made the note, so.
Okay.
Okay. So all those in favor of the certified survey map is CS-2516-23, say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Okay.
So I move approval of rezone request RZ-2517-23 with the 3 conditions set forth by staff.
Second.
All those in favor of the public hearing and consideration of rezone RZ-2517-23, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, Zach. Okay, the motion carried. Okay, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
You are approved, okay. So next we move to 5D. Is the final plat of FP-2514-23, request by Dan Day, agent for Hathan Brothers, Inc., to approve a final plat to allow for the creation of 15 total parcels, including 9 buildable lots from 4 existing parcels of property associated with 2622 Blaney Road. Okay, so Diana.
All right. Just gonna pop this up here. No, okay. Okay, so this one, this is the final plat for Hartung. We've actually seen 2 preliminary plats in the past. On June of last year, the Plan Commission approved PCR-0122 that established the creation of a tax increment district. So this is also within tax increment district number 14. The proposed mixed-use development would include the development of over 500 total dwelling units in the form of multifamily and townhomes. The applicants are also proposing a mix of commercial and industrial uses, including employment centers with office, medical, labs, logistics, and the existing Hartung facility would still continue in operation, and that would be still down in the proposed lot 4. The proposal is to plat about a third of the Hartung Fields development as buildable lots, with the remaining 2/3 proposed as outlots until replatting in the future. Most of the current area to be platted includes the residential facilities, which earlier this year we reviewed the PED GIP. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you. Okay, it's been a long day.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Dan. For the first apartment building that would go in on lot number 8. I think the one thing I will say here, Public Works still has comments that are probably coming forward to you all. I know that there is still going to be quite a bit of things to work out with Public Works on easements and the locations of utilities. That's going to be a process that we work through, and any other future proposal will also require rezone to PDD SIP. That would probably be the next step. And the big one here too, we've been in talks with the Parks Department, and the Parks Department is interested in having the developer propose park names for the future outlots. So this will go before the Parks Commission because of the dedication. So we're just asking you all to propose some potential park names for review by staff. And the Parks Commission, Plan Commission, staff recommends approval of the final plat with 16 conditions.
Okay, so I need a motion. We discussed first.
Yeah, what happened to the pedestrian easement? So is that was between Harvester Pass and Botanical Drive? That's not sure.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
At one point there was a
I
road.
have a couple of people that want to speak to this first, okay? Can we?
Yeah,
I didn't want to put in.
So I have David Height. David, do you want to, you have 3 minutes.
This is my input for the
Oh, okay.
Oh,
thank
3
you.
minutes. That's the state statutes, the web des permits. So my concern here is with regard to the overarching legal requirements. And what I'm neither for or against the project, but have identified over the last 5 years a set of things that the city is not doing that it's required to do. And what I'm pointing out goes to the legality and the process and the requirements that this body needs to apply. In that vein, I believe you could give me 6 minutes instead of 3 minutes by a majority vote for me to talk about what's in those statutes, permits, and CARPAC regulations so that you can make an informed decision about whether you should take an action tonight or not. So I'm asking for 6 minutes.
Can you send us an email and explain that by email?
If you're gonna vote tonight, it's too late.
Oh, okay. I don't know. It's open to you guys.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So as I explained, the MS4 permit is given to the city, and that's what defines the requirements. The city ordinance comes out of that permit. That permit requires the city ordinances for stormwater. Okay? And what's required is complying with all the terms of the permit. And first of all, I want to compliment the developers. They put in bioretention, bioinfiltration. That's more than anybody's done in the North McGaw neighborhood. That's not the issue. The issue is what's required by the law. Okay, so what's required, and let me read directly from the permit, which was issued to the city in 2019. One of the requirements is to incorporate the requirements of the MS4 permit, this is a quote, in the development of master plans, neighborhood plans, development plans, and any other comprehensive planning activity to address water quality impacts from stormwater discharges associated with the implementation of these plans. You see nothing in the comp plan or any other planning document about that permit, which defines what the city's legal requirements are. This is a problem. And specifically with regard to what's required in that permit, again, compliance with NR 103, wetland impacts, it's the wetland water quality standard. Requirement for validation that installation of stormwater facilities and stormwater flows into an environmental corridor will not appreciably, it's called significant adverse impacts to the environmental functions of the corridor. It discharges into Swan Creek, a tributary swamp, which became impaired for phosphorus in 2018, it is unlawful for the city to permit any development that increases over pre-development into a polluted river for a pollutant of concern that's already above the limit. And so these things are the requirements that the ordinances do not reflect, and the Department of Public Works staff, which has been in flux we've had 5 directors of public works in the last 6 years. We've had stormwater turnover. They don't acknowledge any of this. What I'm saying is that, so the developers have filed their wet test permit. The requirements that I've quoted should be evaluated by the DNR. They applied for a general permit, which is the fast track, bypassing all of that. The permit says you're not eligible for this permit if you impact wetlands. Impact wetlands means a new or increased point source discharge to wetlands. So the permit that they applied for, they're not actually eligible for. But I have the ability to challenge that permit with the DNR, which I will do. It's also a really bad idea, I think, to approve a final plat before even the city has approved what the stormwater configuration will look like. So let's just say I'm right, and they have to change the configuration of the stormwater for some reason. Now you've got a final plat. What's the legal status of that? How do you deal with that? Why don't you just wait? I looked at other municipalities, and they do not approve a final plat until the DNR approves the permit. That way you avoid all of the issues. You still have to fix the comp plan. But that way, you know that the DNR has applied these standards, or at least theoretically they do. And if they haven't, the public has had an opportunity to challenge that permit. And if the public hasn't challenged it, well, that's the way it works. So what I'm suggesting tonight is that you postpone the vote until they get the DNR permit approved. And at that point, that should be it. If they get it approved, you're golden, you don't have to make any changes. But if you do it beforehand, you're approving something that nobody has approved yet. The Stormwater Department here hasn't, or has the DNR. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, so we have Dan Day, who wishes to speak in support of the above matter. And then, you want to speak too or no?
I'll give my 3 minutes to Dan.
Oh, you're gonna give your 3 minutes to Dan? Okay, and Jonathan Steven, he's in support of the above matter. Okay.
Good evening, my name is Dan Day from D'Onofrio, Cockey & Associates, representing the Hartung Brothers and Sarah Investments here this evening. This has been a long trajectory of this project. We were just back here a couple months ago getting a revised preliminary plat approved to accommodate the current offer to purchase on the multifamily site. This is the step in the process with the final plat. This is a many-step process. This is probably would be the last version to go in front of the Plan Commission at this point in time. We will still have a subdivision improvement agreement that will have to go in front of council along with the final plat to council. It's very commonplace in every development that I've worked on over the last 25 to 30 years that there's conditions of approval on every final plat at Plan Commission and at council level that takes into all sorts of things. And so many of those things are in the works as we speak right now. So again, we are in the process right now of going through the final plat, contingent approval of the final plat. And you know, we have to satisfy all those conditions before we can record the plat. Very common. Just did it at Highfield 2 years ago for David. So been in that process many times in this community and other communities. As far as what, could you put the overall plan back up, Deanna?
I certainly could.
Thank you. What we're really platting tonight is the northwest corner of the site that would be the removal of the existing Blaney Road, and then the addition of the new Blaney Road, and that is being platted to the point right at the southern end of what we were calling New Blaney. It's actually going to be Blaney Road there. That driveway, that end of the roadway there, then we'll have a driveway off there to serve the existing Hartung facility is where their new location will be. So we have to get the new Blaney in process and opened up so that we can get access to the Hartung facility while we build the rest of the west half of the site. Again, what you should expect is probably next week, you'll be getting a submittal from on lot 6, 7, and 8. Are they submitting all at one time, Jonathan, or just lot 8?
That would be Ned.
That would be Ned. Oh, Ned is
lot 8.
Who's here?
Just lot 8.
Just lot 8. Okay, so they're going to submit the next step for the lot 8, which follows up on our engineering that we've been working on for the site development stuff. So that's going to be the next step in the process for Ned and his individual site improvement. We have proposed, in fact, this afternoon met with city staff to talk about the public improvements that are being proposed. We also are meeting tomorrow with them again to talk about more details on the public improvements. So we're working through all those details that always happen at this part in the point in the process as we get through the approvals. We are gearing up to start grading and some utility installation this fall. If everything goes according to plan. And then completing streets for those areas that you're seeing platted next year, during the next year's construction season, incremented just a little bit. The Ned, I believe, is planning on starting on lot 8 sometime in early 24 for his building construction there. So that's just kind of to give you a big picture overview of what's going on, just to kind of give you a little snapshot of where we're at in our process. So we are here at Plan Commission. I believe we have to go to Parks Commission, and then we'll be in council in early September.
September.
Yes. Wow, September. So that's where we're at, and just wanted to kind of just talk a little bit about where we are.
I have a question for you. Do you work with other municipalities? Do you have projects with other municipalities?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do they require for the final plat to have approval of the DNR?
No.
Which other municipality do you work?
Verona, Madison, Sun Prairie, Waunakee, Oregon.
Oh.
Yeah, everyone pretty much around.
I had a similar question. If you've worked with Mr. Hagan at all, and if you want to address his concerns.
Well, his concerns are whether we file a permit or not. When we are doing the process as the process was designed and laid out, and that's obtaining permits from approvals from 3 or 4 different agencies for our stormwater management, along with other different approvals too. So we are not doing, so yes, we are getting DNR stormwater approval for the notice of intent. That's been submitted to them a week or 2 ago. Can't remember, so they've got another week or so on their reply. We've submitted the stormwater erosion control permit to the city for the county review of the stormwater management. We submitted to CARP-C, Capital Area Region Plan Commission, and going through the process with them. Also, we're looking to try to submit for our sanitary sewer extension permit for approval from Madison Met in September. And then we also have to get to the DNR for our sanitary sewer and water main approvals also in the month of September. So yeah, we got a nice little schedule set out. There's always hiccups in the schedule sometimes, but it's incumbent upon us as the development team and as the owners that if this plat is approved here, it's conditionally approved. That doesn't mean it's recorded. That doesn't mean it's anything set in stone. Until the day that I take it to the Register of Deeds with everybody's signature on it, it's not official. And to get the city to sign, I have to have all those pieces of the puzzle put together.
But you are not skipping any process, step in the process.
Nope.
No, I want to be sure that because of the comment that the resident made, David, that we are not doing anything illegal here.
We are, from my knowledge, and I've done this quite a bit, Everything that we're doing is by the book, by the regulations that are out there. Like I said, we've been doing this as a development group for many times over many years. There's always twists and turns in any development process. As Mr. Fahey will attest to over there too, doing quite a bit of work for him over the years also. So and it's been fairly standardized, that stormwater aspect of the process over the last, I mean, even when I started doing this 25, 30 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot to it, right? But it's really come a long way to the point that it's getting relatively known, but there's still a lot of unknown to it. But I mean, the regulations are known.
So one of the conditions that staff is recommending is that erosion control and stormwater management permit obtained prior to land disturbance, and I assume, so is all the DNR,
Yep.
all that's involved in
You
this
bet.
permit?
That's an absolute requirement that we have to do that. So, it doesn't, that is a definite requirement. One thing I did forget to address is you had a question about the access easement.
Oh, yeah, the pedestrian.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's going across the north end of lot 7, and that will be provided on the plat. It's a condition of the approval.
Is that what this is?
Yes, that is correct.
So I'm showing a picture that I got from Steve Arnold.
And we
showing a road and there was some concern
Well,
in
if you
transportation.
flip over what was
And
approved
this
was
is
this. yeah.
adopted and proposed,
Yeah.
so
we have
I was
a
concerned about that, but.
Yep, we have a public pedestrian easement that is going to be put on the plat. It was a condition of approval here. We didn't put it on the plat yet because we were still kind of waiting for Ned to finalize his site plan before we actually put it on the plat. So yes, that is a condition of approval and will definitely be on the plat before staff signs off.
Yep, it's number 15.
So why did you pull back from the preliminary plat and that outlot?
Yeah, so,
yeah.
I mean, so outlot 5 is reserved for future development effectively is what it is, right? And so we don't have a distinct user there yet. So we're not ready to put in the public improvements in that area for that. So once we have legitimate sales, then we'll come through and work on another phase, which will extend that to the east.
But that wasn't the preliminary.
Oh, yeah, yep. And you don't, as technically as part of the, well, not technically, but part of the state statute, you do not have to final plat your whole preliminary plat. So we're just platting the portion right now that's we're wanting to develop at this point in time. Just a couple minor things here. Lot 4, which is the big lot in the south, that's going to remain the Hard Tons facility, and their operation is going to stay the same as it is today. And then the outlot 6 over there on the east side is actually going to be, with this plat, going to be dedicated to the public for wetlands, stormwater management, and sanitary sewer and trail. So, but it's going to be dedicated at this point in time when this plat gets recorded. There'll be no improvements down there yet until, I think the first one would be the city would put an interceptor in there, but that's down the road a little ways. Okay?
Any other comments? So we are ready? Okay, so this.
I'm sorry, I just had, did you?
Oh,
I'm blanking out, did you did the memo, right? Didn't you just talk through the memo for this one? Or am I jumping the gun?
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't read the whole darn thing.
No, that's okay.
I did.
Yeah. So
I could do more.
No, that's fine. You have in here that staff had a variety of comments not addressed by revisions, but instead they'd be addressed after plan commission approval and then before signing the final plan. Is that typical?
Sometimes it just happens, we have a quick turnaround to get all the comments out, and I know Public Works is still working on their comments. It's just, it's not desirable all the time, but it happens.
So when in condition 14, when you say applicants have to satisfy all planning comments, would that be any new comments that come up after the revision?
No, it's the ones that we've already given them.
Yeah. So could something come up after because we don't have everything done before we're going to give our approval, might there be something that arises after we approve, that we also wanna make sure you're comfortable with, and do we need to address that somehow?
I don't know what that would be. I mean, I think the planning staff has gone through pretty well with this. As Dan kind of talked through, it's a very detailed back and forth process with Public Works, that they'll have to do lots of meetings to work out. But I don't foresee anything else coming up unless you all find something that I missed.
I just didn't wanna approve something that we don't have the whole picture of and that the city staff isn't comfortable with.
Oh, no, I'm comfortable with approval.
So that's, the question is, you mentioned that lot number 8 is gonna be the first one to start, start building up. So when is this process, when will happen?
I think Ned is proposing, I think you're still on submittal plan for next week, right? Submittal date, so then it would be in front of.
Yeah, I'm happy to dive in on that. Our intent is to submit an SIP application next week. There's a lot of work to do between now and 5 p.m. on Tuesday, but that is our intent, and we are working away towards that.
Okay.
So that'll put it into September.
It's still light speed.
Okay, so who, at least I want to move it.
Move approval of final plat request FP 2514-23 with 16 conditions noted by staff.
A second.
Second by Rich. Okay, any other additional comments? No? All those in favor of the final plat, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much, appreciate your time.
No, we need to do the other one.
There's just one.
I think there's just
What
one.
about the other one?
That's the next one.
Oh, you're working also for.
Oh, yeah, David Beatty's gonna talk on this one.
Okay, so we're confused.
No, just you take it away, David.
So next is we have a certified survey map CS-2515-23 request by Dan Day, agent for Fayhill Glen LLC to approve a certified survey map to create a 2 buildable lots from one existing lot on property associated with 5380 West Fayhill Glen. Okay, yeah. Okay. Oh, no, she's gonna present and then you can. And then
Okay, so this is a certified survey map, and then in conjunction with this, minor PDD modification. So this is part of Highfield Reserve that has an approved zoning and approved final plat and under construction. And you know what, I'll just kind of go. So the applicant is requesting to subdivide this larger lot. So subdivide the lot, lot 270 of Highfield Reserve into 2 separate pieces. And this will allow the construction to start on the northern part of the lot sooner. During the construction of, the staff's primary comments to the applicant regarding the updated proposed documents. So we're looking for an updated documents to be inserted into the planned development district, the approved PDD SIP. And given that there's no other changes in setbacks or lots or other dimensional standards, staff has identified no concerns. So I'll just go. This is kind of what the proposed subdivision is. Staff recommends approval with 8 conditions. And now, David, you can.
Okay, now let me. So, David Fayhill, you are here to answer and speak. So, David.
So I'm David Fahey. I grew up in the 5th generation to live on Iron Plain, so this is part of the original farm. We have started with, on lot 271, is under construction, and the final 5th building foundation will be completed probably next week. and the other 4 in progress.
So these buildings, sorry, it's still coming up, but the multifamily lot 271.
So in order to, Fahey Glen on the north side is not constructed yet. In order to keep moving with the larger buildings, we need to divide the lot to make my favorite friends happy.
So why the reason that we,
Because we cannot pull a building permit without West Fahey Glen improved,
oh, okay.
which is the north street. Tullamore Street is in, but West Fahey Glen will not be in until 2025 due to sewer direction pipe flow.
And so Public Works, the city does not sign off on a building permit unless the road infrastructure and the utility infrastructure is in. And so, as David was saying, West Fahey Glen is not going to be in for a while. And so to move forward on the multifamily on the northern part of this lot, he's requesting a CSO.
Okay, I have another question. So if there is an emergency and how they are gonna access the,
Can you get down to the other one? I think it was in my emails.
Which way you want me to go? Like this one back?
No, down to the one that I do the email support.
Oh. In here? Oh, there we go.
Okay. You know, the map in this one.
Okay.
So it's a 46 unit is on Tullamore Street with all utilities coming off Tullamore Street. There is a private parking driveway that comes in off of Tullamore that will flow. The yellow will be a fire turnaround, and so they will have access to all sides of the building.
Oh, okay.
I just need to send that and get, that's conditional on fire approval, which is one of the conditions.
It is. One of the conditions is approval and working with the fire department to ensure that there's adequate access and water. We always have to talk about water.
Oh, yeah. Any comments? So how many units this?
In 70 units in the total lot. The building 4, which is the northern building, is 46 units. And then the other is 6 units.
Oh, the other one are smaller, okay. Okay.
I'll move to approve certified survey map CS-2515-23 with the 8 conditions noted by staff.
All those in favor of approving the certified survey map, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh. Zach.
Aye.
Okay. The motion carries. So, next is,
I move to approve the minor PDD modification request for Highland Field Reserve.
I'll second.
all those in favor to approve the minor PDD modification, say aye.
Aye.
The motion carried. So thank you, David. So next we move to pre-application for the Bowman Plaza. It's a request by Ned Hoyt to obtain a pre-application review for a proposed mixed-use development on the site of the existing Bowman Plaza located on property associated with 2934 Fitchburg Road. Okay, yeah.
Hey, so this is the, this is the current Bowman Plaza, and the applicants are proposing to develop a new mixed-use building and working in partnership with the neighboring church right to the north. The property is currently located on Lot 2 of CSM 555. The proposal is for a 7-story building of 250 units with approximately 18,000 square foot of commercial space. The applicants would propose PDD zoning. that would allow some more flexibility. Bowman Plaza currently exists on the parcel. It's a single-story strip center with various commercial uses. And the applicant, I guess we already talked about the PDD. The proposed parking includes 177 stalls plus 325 garage stalls. And keep in mind that this is parking in conjunction with the church too. The residential uses would have a parking ratio of about 1.3 units, 3 stalls per unit. And then as currently designed with approximately 97 stalls for the commercial uses, that would meet our current parking standards of about 5 spaces per 1,000 square feet. So I guess we talked a little bit about, particularly noteworthy is the height of the structure. This would be one of Fitchburg's tallest structures with a design height of 77 feet tall. And let's see. Staff just notes that we are working to resolve a future roadway reservation on the CSM. So staff is working with the applicant and the city of Madison to release that reservation. Thinking that might be able to come to Plan Commission in a month or two. And I think I will just leave it there.
Okay, so Ned, do you want to make additional?
Good evening.
Hi. What time is there in Australia?
It is about almost 11:30 in the morning.
Oh, okay.
That's a much nicer time.
I'd love to just show some of the concept slides and just talk about a few of the constraints and issues and some of the thinking, just to talk through them with the Plan Commission, and then be open to additional discussion and questions and comments. If that's all right.
Okay. Do you want to share your screen, or do you want me to put it?
Probably, because I can then see it that way. If you share it on the screen, I'm not sure if I'll see it, but do you want to try, or do you want me to try?
I'll try. And we'll see if IT can help us here.
So just to be efficient with the Plan Commission's time, I'd probably just jump to the annexure slides that have the plans on them.
Yep.
Again, I'm more than happy to answer questions about the verbiage, sort of, et cetera, but that's kind of where I would start. Maybe zoom in a tiny bit. So I think the first thing that the Plan Commission should be kind of aware of from my perspective is that this is a very challenged site from a coordination sort of perspective. As you may know, that there used to be a stop and go service station sort of at the front, which was the cornerstone of this as a retail kind of strip sort of facility. And with the sale of the stop and go business to Quick Trip and the adjacent Kelly's Market location to the south, Quick Trip decided to remove this and to contract basically that it could not be used as another service station in the future, which left kind of a hole in the retail operation, which has then lost tenants, partly as a result of COVID, partly as a result of lost foot traffic. So it's a reasonably empty structure at the moment, without at this point any long-term leases remaining for the few remaining sort of tenants. It's also constrained, as Deanna was saying. There's a road reservation, originally established by Madison on the north side. There is a access easement that's shared with kind of Kelly's Markets on the south. And then the site itself is reasonably small in terms of what it actually has from an acreage perspective. I believe it's only about 2.3 acres. So we approached this from the point of view of talking to the City on Hill Church to the north, understanding kind of what their needs were, and being developers, we logically asked them if they would sell, and the answer was a resounding no. But we were able to talk about what their needs were for parking, for growth, sort of, et cetera. And we're able to determine that there was probably an opportunity for some shared parking along the southern boundary of the church. And given kind of off-cycle hours between the church and the commercial presence that would be in the new building, we felt that there was a sharing of parking efficiency and costs that would make potentially for a meeting of minds. So these conversations have been going on for almost a 2-year period to try and figure out a solution that would work both for a development, but also for the church and also for the markets to the south, and not last but not least the city from a development sort of perspective. As the Plan Commission probably knows, we've done a lot of work within the Fish Hatchery Road corridor. The last 2 buildings we've done, Ochala Springs and at Avalon, aren't right on Fish Hatchery, but our Terrace Point project was. Certainly at the time that was proposed and built through 2019 to 2021, the focus was on providing a more urban design and focus along Fish Hatchery. And we are trying to achieve that here by having a frontage that is very much up on Fish Hatchery Road with about a 10-foot sort of setback. And we proposed about 20,000 square feet of commercial space on 2 levels that would directly abut Fish Hatchery Road and provide good visibility and exposure to businesses in those locations, and then arrange the parking for those on both the south side and the north side in conjunction with those proposed shared easements with Kelly's Markets and the church to the north, while the parking is on the inside. The other piece I just speak to sort of briefly, and then we could sort of flip through the slides, is that this is a 7-story kind of proposed building. The total height is actually closer to 85 feet than 77. It's kind of 77 on the western side and 85 along kind of Fish Hatchery. The reason for that essentially is twofold, one of which is the footprint is small enough that we can't do our normal kind of 4 levels of residential over 1 level of parking because there isn't then enough parking to support the residential. You need a second level of parking to support that. And if you do that, you then don't have enough residential for your parking to keep that balance right from an economic efficiency. So we've gone to 5 over 2 from a construction style perspective, which is about the limit that you can do from a timber perspective. Although I have been told and advised in the past that it is possible to go higher, but certainly not in our normal construction realm. The second issue we have is that on review, phase 1 environmental concerns, we identified that a former dry cleaner on the site would likely have resulted in some environmental contamination of solvents, and that the operation of the Kelly's Markets to the south and the fact that they had a workshop on site, there may very well be some petroleum contaminants. So we are in process of doing some additional testing, but given those results and the likelihood of some PFAS chemical contaminants, we revised sort of the thinking and basically have not got any excavation plans. So it would be 7 levels above ground, where originally we looked at 6 levels above ground and 1 level of underground parking, because there is no cost-efficient way of disposing of those sorts of contaminated soils at the moment, given the current state of regulation. So that also adds to the complexity from a heist perspective. So again, the complexity of coordination with the neighbors and the complexity of the height driven by the small lot size and the contaminants are kind of the 2 key things you should be aware of that have kind of driven this proposal. Deanne, I don't know if you want to just briefly sort of go through the slides. I'm just so we can comment sort of briefly. So roughly 250 units, just over a 1.3 parking ratio. Still about 1 per bedroom from a parking ratio perspective, which is just under, but generally consistent with prior projects we've done in the corridor. We will certainly try and get that sort of ratio up, but as a starting point, we believe that that's consistent. We've used the same unit mix that we had at Avalon, roughly 800 square feet sort of per unit, and roughly the same mix of 1s, 2s, 3s, et cetera. That may change slightly in the implementation, but for now, that gives us our roughly 250 unit estimate. Next page. So first sort of parking level, you'll see again about 9,000 square feet at the front of retail with lobby on the southeast sort of corner so that it addresses Fish Hatchery Road. You will see in this that we have an entrance to the on the south into this level. We also have a ramp on the northwest corner. So in consultation with the city staff and with the church, we basically agreed that one level of parking would be designed to go to the north to the Yachala West intersection, and one set of parking would be designed to go to the south and potentially the Post Road intersection, so that we didn't cause undue traffic congestion in one direction or the other, particularly at rush hour sort of timeframes. Next slide. So again, we continue the retail space sort of at the front. We include an elevator for ADA access to those commercial spaces as well. And then this level of parking would access to the north via ramp with plenty of bike storage and amenity space kind of added as well. We have not yet specified what the amenity sort of is, but we're thinking some normal kind of club room or office for work for home sort of folks within sort of the club room sort of concept here. And then the next slide. So we have maintained our typical kind of green roof. This is a little small by our standards. It's just under 15,000 square feet, sort of facing to the north with potential views to the capital of the north. 3 elevators, 4 stairs at the moment, but we would review that in conjunction with detailed design from a code perspective. Next slide. Just continues up sort of for the multiple levels. And then I think the last 2 slides just give an idea of the height. This is showing kind of a cross section and shows the parking ramp kind of entrance from the side, which shows it at about 77 feet of height from the rear of the site, which is higher than Fish Hatchery Road. And the next slide shows the kind of how the retail levels on Fish Hatchery, which are slightly lower, would set in with a total height of closer to 85 feet for that. I will just, if we go back to the beginning of these sort of pages, the site plan, I will just highlight one other piece that we are working through. There you go. So at the moment, we show an infiltration area to the west of the site and a dog park to the south. We are investigating kind of both of those areas at the moment in terms of environmental contamination to figure out where we can actually meet the stormwater requirements for this site. The city has requested that we keep the western side available for a potential future private road. And so to the degree that we can, given environmental contamination, we would move that stormwater either underground in that location or to the location currently shown as a dog park. And we would expect to come back with that answer as part of any GIP kind of application. But we don't know the answer to that at the moment. I'm just acknowledging that request. Finally, I'll add 2 minutes just in terms of the church. Given that this process was ongoing and would require a GIP application over the church property, we've engaged in a discussion with Pastor Dave at the church and some of the other church community members to understand the potential kind of needs of the church. And we have designed this with them in a manner that would provide additional parking to supplement their likely service needs, but also shows potential addition of a new kind of lobby and amenity area on the Fish Hatchery Road side, some additional access, storage, et cetera, and potentially a new building to replace the existing pasturage house that could provide both religious and educational sort of components to the members of the church community. We would expect the those GIP application components to be submitted at the same time as the building to the south, the multifamily building. But those would be progressed separately by the church beyond that in terms of detailed SIP or actual execution in the future. And that's probably more than you needed to hear, but I'm open to additional sort of questions, background discussion, feedback.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions. So I think this is, first of all, this is great that we are, I like the, the concept of, develop that Bauman Plaza because, if, I don't know, you have driven that area, this is, it's very bad. The current almost empty building there. I think it's great that, we are bringing more development to the fish hatchery corridor. I am not concerned about the 7-story, I am more concerned about how many parking spaces, you know what I mean? I don't know if the ratio 1.3 stalls, it seems too high for my taste, but maybe this is me personally. The question is, why do we need so many parking spaces? You know what I mean? And the question is, the one that you're going to co-share with the church, are already those 80 stalls built, or you are planning to build those? I don't know that what happened behind the church. So that one is my question for now.
If you see where it says 36 stalls and then 9 stalls, those two areas immediately adjacent to the church, those are currently about the limit of existing parking. And in fact, the church community actually uses the Bowman Plaza site for parking when they have a combined service. So they identified when we were talking to them that if we were to develop the Bowman site and not work with them from a parking perspective, they would all of a sudden have a shortage of parking.
Okay.
The total parking provided, the 80 plus 37 plus 36 plus 9 from on the church site, is designed to accommodate roughly a 400-person maximum capacity service, which is about what they can get to with a combined service. Typically, they would do 2 services on a Sunday at the moment, 8:30 and 10:15. And during the summer, they would often run 1 service. But when they do a combined service, they would get close to that at the moment. So it's designed to accommodate the church's needs, which can be significant at some periods of time. But because they don't need the parking all of the time, that was why we proposed to have the 37 and 36 on the southern end adjacent to our building as shared parking, where it could be available to the commercial tenants in non-church hours and to the church during church hours, so to speak. We think that actually minimizes the combined kind of parking need between the 2 uses to the best of our ability. There's some finesse to that, but that was our attempt with this process.
So my other question is regarding the retail space. What do you have in mind for that retail space? Is it going to be one retail, or is it going to be several businesses?
I prefer paying tenants generally. We have a real challenge, right? We have a space designed at Terrace Point that's about 4,500 square feet that's designed for a hospitality tenant, and for 2 years we have not been able to successfully get one with reasonable financials. We have another 10,000 square feet of kind of retail office commercial space at Ochala Springs that is just opened up, and we are yet to sign our first tenant. So there is a risk sort of here and a question in terms of providing kind of too much commercial space when we already potentially have absorbed some sort of questions. That said, kind of post-COVID, et cetera, we are, comfortable that we are headed in the right direction with that, given the level of inquiries we have. So in that context, I suspect that the second level of this, the top 9,000 square feet, is much more likely to be office kind of sort of retail, and that the lower level is potentially more likely to be kind of showroom or actual sort of retail. It's possible, again, that we could have a cafe sort of or a restaurant, but given our challenges getting that for Terrace Point, we are, we're not placing all our eggs in one basket on that kind of a bet. So we don't have a firm sort of perspective, but we're designing it kind of with those kind of thoughts in mind.
I think it will be a good idea to have like a co-sharing working space there. I don't know, we don't have one in the city. I don't know. Could be a neat idea to have, I don't know. So I have more questions.
We added some special little kind of office Zoom spaces into our Ochala Springs kind of common room, and they seem to have been well received.
Okay.
So that was one of the things we were thinking about adding into the kind of amenity sort of space on the second parking level in that southeast corner above the lobby. And if you combine that with, a cafe or some other office space, that might make a good sort of combination. But those are things we'll explore in kind of more detailed design at the GIP stage if the Plan Commission gives us permission to proceed down the PDD zoning application route.
Shelley.
So I had a couple things. I am troubled by the height partly. Not only it's going to be the very tallest thing on the road, which would be okay, and either it's the start of the renaissance of fish hatchery to be in East Washington, or it's just going to be sticking out like a sore thumb. And I don't know what the development potential is for, the rest of North Fish Hatchery, but as it goes south and north. And if this is if other developments are likely to kind of mesh with the massiveness of this one. And also, it seems like it's going to really dwarf all the apartment buildings in the back to the west. And I don't know what it does for shading for them, but it seems very massive, although I think the concept is great to have something very vibrant and exciting. But my main question is about the traffic flow. I don't know how are you getting cars to go north on North Fish Hatchery without having to do U-turns, and I don't know how they get to Post Road or Ochala. I mean, what is it? I'm confused about the traffic flow.
This one is on there.
So what is being proposed is a private road that will connect to, this is the Ochala intersection, and it's a lighted intersection.
Okay.
Yep. So, and then of course, from this side, it would be possible to come out onto Post Road too.
There's that roadway behind Kelly's Market, that's a public roadway? I don't know how you get there.
This is
It's an existing easement behind Kelly's Markets that then connects to Post Road.
Okay, so that'd be usable for the tenants of the building.
Yes.
Okay, Rich.
Same vein, with the massing of that is huge, and you have a 3-hour horizontal separation between the retail and the residential, and which allows you then, I think, to use wood frame going up. Is that correct? But what's the exterior going to be? Because I was thinking like a masonry exterior, so you have a big massing that would represent or fit with the 7th story. What do you have in mind right now for your exterior finishes?
We're still sort of working that through. We're suspecting that you'll have a difference in the facades between the 2 lower floors of commercial and the 5 stories above, and still have some continuance of elements kind of from a vertical kind of perspective. We think the commercial will certainly have more glass and window openings, partly at city staff's request, and partly because it's the right thing to do, and that some of those elements will travel up sort of vertically, but we'll also use some masonry and some siding on the upper levels. Part of the reason we've adopted the kind of H with the roof deck sort of portion and then the dog park inset on the south is that it breaks up the mass of the building and provides more contours. Certainly from the road, you'll see more of what happens right at the commercial space as you're driving south. But from any other dimension, you'll actually have a bit of variety in terms of you don't have a long kind of wall exposed to either the north or the south. You have those kind of insets that will help to break up the mass of the building.
Nice.
Obviously, we would expect significant questions from you all at the time of kind of GIP if we don't provide, a quality building design that, that makes you say, wow. We would expect to be significantly questioned by you at that time.
So, what is your response to my concern about the impact on all those I think they're 2-story apartments out on the west?
There is always a challenge when you have a vision for increasing the density of a particular area of what happens kind of in the areas sort of adjacent sort of to that. And there's always a timing question about what develops sort of first, and whatever develops first will always kind of have a more imposing kind of profile relative to other things. So there's a certain element here, which is we are trying to fit in with the North Fish Hatchery sort of visioning, and we believe that in general the concept is consistent sort of with that. In terms of the West, there is a bit of a challenge in figuring out how to address that. There are a range of trade-offs. So we have included a setback there which is sufficient for a future private road at the request of the city. If we weren't providing that future private road space, we would be able to kind of more easily do some step functions or additional kind of landscaping within that area that would provide more breakup of that sort of building to the west. But by kind of keeping that in place, we further limit the available space on the site from a development perspective. There are a couple of larger trees that currently exist sort of on the boundary, and a couple that exist within the green space of the properties to the west. We'd be very open to kind of exploring kind of appropriate landscaping kind of there, kind of with them, as a way to provide kind of additional shielding of the building to help kind of break it up or shield it from sort of view. We're also looking at what we can do with the facade and design of that western side of the building so that it's not, certainly not an eyesore to those residents to the west.
And I don't know about, I assume they're going to lose a lot of light. Is there a big difference between the light, the shading that's going to impact them from a 5-story versus 7-story? I mean, you might get to a certain height and it won't matter how much higher you go.
I'm not an expert on lighting. I would not think there'd be a significant difference between sort of 5 and 7 stories kind of out of the ground, but I would be just making up a response to tell you that I knew.
So the other thing that I want to mention before Mike is going to join us to explain a little bit more about this project is like the city is also working with the city of Madison with the BRT. So it's probably that if we get, Madison is putting together a big grant to start the development of the north-south BRT. If they get a grant, this project is coming in the next 2 years to the city, and it's going to be great for that corridor, through an economic development perspective, because we are going to have these buses coming every 15 minutes, taking people from south to north and to connect with the rest of the city, the north. So that one is something that also is coming to that corridor, to think about. Okay, I have more questions, but then Mike, you want to add anything?
Oh, sure. I was just going to kind of echo with the North Fish Hatchery Road vision. What Venture Capital and Ned and Mike are bringing forward is exactly what we had hoped to see along the North Fish Hatchery Road corridor. That's the older section of the city that developed when we were still a town. And we're going back in now, and we've got the tax increment district in place. They've already done some great projects with Terrace Point, Oshala Springs, the one coming on Index Road, that's gonna be Avalon. And what we're trying to do is densify, infill development, urbanize, and also strengthen the trade ring in the corridor. As Ned mentioned about right now, we're struggling a little bit to fill some of the commercial space. We need to continue to fill in and strengthen that trade ring with the density and the purchasing power there. We realize this building on that side of the road, kind of sets a new character there as far as the density, but we hope that there will be other projects that'll come forward. I've always referenced that versus greenfield development, which has been our primary development to date. Infill development is more like a puzzle, and there's different pieces, and sometimes the timing is a little different or it takes more time, but you've got to start somewhere to kind of put those pieces of the puzzle in place and then continue to kind of add to it. I know there's been some questions about the property to the west, which is actually City of Madison, CDA, I believe, publicly owned housing there. My gut feeling, and I have no information to think this may happen, but if you look at the triangle, what's happening there at Regent and Park Street, where they're urbanizing and densifying what was publicly owned housing there, my gut feeling is someday that property to the west of this site, we will see that same thing happen on that property as Madison continues to look at their public housing portfolio. So I think, to me, this is a great project. This is exactly what we're looking for with redevelopment of Bowman Plaza. It continues to build momentum. It'll strengthen the TID district, for us. So we realize this is just the first step in the process, but we just appreciate Venture Capital because they're buying into the vision of Fish Hatchery Road. They both live here in Fitchburg. They drive this corridor every day. They have their own company offices in the southern end of Venture Capital. So we've got some great partners here to help us transform that northern corridor. And as the mayor mentioned with the BRT, this is exactly what we want along Fish Hatchery Road in a BRT corridor where there's going to be at least 4 station platforms down the middle of Fish Hatchery Road from Greenway Cross down to McKee Road.
Yes, I think you're responding to some of my concerns, but I think it's a great concept and it's vibrant and wonderful. It just seems so tall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we need to think that this is our urban area, of the city.
I was gonna say, like, the 7 stories I was excited by because one of my very first meetings serving on the commission, we looked at the grandiose plan of what North Fish Hatch was gonna look like with quite stately buildings, especially I'm thinking of where Post and Fish Hatch meet. They were gonna be kind of like the urban center, tall, not these 4- and 5-story buildings that we continually see built, but actually something with height and character, and then from there kind of go out into condos, duplexes, single family as you head further and further east. So I was actually excited by finally having something that was more than 4 stories. But then getting into details, a little nervous as to what the actual building articulation and what the finished touches are gonna be, because I'm picturing a 2-story parking ramp within a 4-story, 5-story building on top of it, and that parking ramp is not gonna work there. So that's where, those details I think will be important when we actually get to that point in the GIP. But for one, I'm excited to actually see some height in that area and some density, because that's where we should be putting it.
Another comment or recommendation to think when when you're going to continue working in the design of this project, and because this parcel qualified for tax incremental financing because of the condition of we need to mitigate the condition with the contamination. So I would like to see from the perspective of if you can use some renewable materials, solar, or anything that if the city is gonna be part of providing some TIF money, what you can how you can incorporate that, some sort of solar, panels, or renewable materials, so it will be, and maybe Mike is gonna, anyway, I know that we are also working with your other project to incorporate a percentage of workforce unit too. I don't know if you will consider to also incorporate a percentage of the unit here, workforce housing. I am not telling what to do, I am telling that it will be nice, you know what I mean? But they are like my opinion, this is Julia's opinion, you know what I mean? So, so something to consider, that's it.
We would be hesitant to provide partial affordable here if it were the first place for it to be approved. In general, we have, I think, indicated consistently that we are in favor of partial affordable housing in a variety of kind of dwellings, and certainly to looking into it. But to put partial affordable on the west side of Fish Hatchery when we haven't succeeded in putting it on the east side, I think would send the wrong kind of message in terms of neighborhoods rather than sort of spreading it out. So I'd be a little hesitant sort of on that, but we are open to the idea of partial affordable here and in every one of our buildings eventually, potentially. And we would love to figure out a way to do solar. There are some constraints in terms of the way that MG&E does metering and the metering requirements for individual units. Given the large commercial presence here, we may be able to do that successfully here where we haven't been able to do it on other buildings. I would just flag, though, that there are some height requirements and restrictions where we would have to check whether the solar panels on the roof put us over the maximum code limit for height, given the constraints of not being able to dig out for the contamination. But we'll certainly agree to look into that question without committing to it.
Or, you know what, another idea that I saw in Europe, I think they're doing that, in your 80 stall there, you can have like high raising solar panel and the car can be under.
I will pass your suggestion on to the church.
One thing that I would say for just in terms of getting feedback, I like what you're doing with the stalls shared with the church. One concern is how are those, I'm assuming that's what you would want to use for your retail spaces or so how is that going to be connected? Because I would be concerned there right now, if I remember right, there's a height difference there. How are you going to direct that traffic? And then I don't understand the 24 stalls to the south. What are those for? Could that be repurposed some other way?
The commercial space, Deanna, I don't know if you want to go to the second sort of page, just because it's easier to kind of see the commercial. Third page, I guess. So either one of these is fine. So the commercial is at the front, but it spans from the north sort of to the south, although there is our lobby to the south. But in theory, you could park on either the north side or the south side from a retail sort of parking sort of perspective, and walk back to the shop sort of entrances. The ground floor should be accessible kind of walking from either side. The height differential is to the west of the site. So you potentially are walking back along a sidewalk down a little bit towards Fish Hatchery Road to then enter into the retail. And then you would access the upper space via the elevator or stairs. So I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that helps quite a bit. I would say when we get to more specific planning, how the north side will tie in. Just trying to picture that, I guess, is a really basic, stupid question, I guess. We're getting late, people. It's 9 o'clock, here we are.
Any more comments? I think that, I don't know.
I would just add from the retail commercial perspective, the importance of parking and accessibility, probably both on the north and the south side. I've already talked to one commercial user that asked me about this project. They know that it's potentially coming. And the one comment they made to me is make sure if that retail is gonna be there, that there's parking available for people to access those businesses and commercial uses. So I just wanna make sure, especially on the commercial side there, that, you know, we make sure that there are ample stalls and that they're accessible and convenient for the retail commercial uses there in order for them to be successful.
So what is next? You know, when do you anticipate if everything moves forward? What is your time frame for this project?
Well, we have a lot of things to sort through. We're currently in the process of working through the access easement on the south with Kelly's Markets to be sure that the turning radiuses still work for all of their kind of delivery vehicles. We're chatting with the church about being sure that everything works for them and what their plans are. And assuming kind of approval to proceed with PDD zoning, we'll then have the next set of conversations with our architects to refine kind of how the building actually works and the various components. In theory, if we get our act together, we would expect to start demolition in the summer of next year of 24. There's kind of a jigsaw puzzle here in terms of the process whereby we would need to construct the new parking and access on the church site before we could demolish the existing structure in order for the church to still have sufficient sort of parking and access, then demolish the existing kind of Bowman Plaza in the fall of 24, and then it's probably something like a 20 to 22 month construction that would take us to the summer of 26 from an opening occupancy perspective. But at this point, that's just a very high level schedule of how it might sort of come together, and is dependent on a lot of pieces falling into place to be sure that it's both something that you all are happy with, that work for all the participants, and that actually makes financial sense.
Okay, any other question? Comment?
I believe that the last ladder truck that we purchased for the city goes up at least high enough to take care of your 7th floor here, so
Oh,
that
really?
would be a concern.
Okay.
I believe
Good
so,
point.
but that's something to keep in mind when we're looking
Yeah,
at
yeah,
7 stories. We gotta make sure we have a ladder truck that goes that high, so I
Okay, good
believe
point.
we do.
Okay.
Can you confirm that?
Yeah, I think we've already talked about that with
Good.
the development team.
Yeah.
And someday in the future, when we get to 10 stories, then we might need a new truck.
Yeah, but I think we're good for now, so that helps and.
No, I think, I don't know, particularly I really like it's part of our vision for the corridor. I think we are bringing some fair market value apartment to the other side of Fitchburg Road, so we can blend that, that we need that mix of income in the two sides. So,
Well, if we've got a capital view, that's gonna
yeah.
make that building
I was
special as well.
It might actually tempt me to move apartments.
Well, either that or have you thought about a rooftop business?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a rooftop beer garden and restaurant on the 7th floor and maybe?
Yeah.
I'll drink beer anywhere.
Just noting that that council's comments or city's comments did indicate that we can't just have a bar because we're within a certain distance of a church and therefore would not be compliant, and we can only serve alcohol in conjunction with the restaurant. And we certainly would not want to be
I saw it in
promoting
the
the
notes.
idea that we were going to have a bar.
What an ordinance. Who?
Boy, that's a buzzkill.
I know, is that in Wisconsin?
Yeah, we would drink beer in the
maybe.
winter up there. I mean, come on.
Okay, I think any other comments so we can move on, and so I think everyone agreed that yes.
Good luck, thanks.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Appreciate the time.
Okay, thank you. Enjoy your day in Australia.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. See you in 2 weeks.
Yeah, bye. Okay, what is next?
So the next three items kind of work in together. The first one, where the three items are coming to you kind of as a package for the South Stoner Prairie Neighborhood Plan and the Greenfield Neighborhood Plan. So we just wanted to bring forward, first of all, the the resolution for the contract for the neighborhood plans. That is our 11623. So staff released an RFP very early this year and selected MSA to conduct both, to be the consultant for both South Stoner Prairie and Greenfield neighborhood plans. So that's what the first item is, just the contract for you. The next one is for South Stoner Prairie. So resolution 117 is a cost sharing agreement with the two major landowners / developers in South Stoner Prairie. The first one is Payne and Dolan, and then the second major landowner is Yahara Materials. Yahara Materials back in April came to you or came to Plan Commission for a conditional use permit to do the quarry, and so on resolution 117, this would allow the city to go into a cost sharing agreement for the South Stoner Prairie. The two entities would pay about half of the costs for the South Stoner Prairie neighborhood plan, and then the city would pay the other half.
And in exchange, they get seats at the table.
Yes, so they do.
No, they should.
Yeah, they do. As the agreement stands right now, Payne and Dolan would get 2 seats on the steering committee, and Yahara Materials would get 2 seats on the committee. Brad's memo here lays out. I can bring that up for you. Let me just go grab that for you. Okay, so I could just bring it up. So the memo lays out here the steering committees for you. So these are just kind of general. We haven't named any names yet here, but this is what the initial proposal is for those steering committees. There isn't a cost share for Greenfield. There isn't a single major landowner in the same way that there is for South Stoner Prairie. And of course, throughout the process, Plan Commission will be involved. We'll do regular updates and bring all the different pieces and parts to Plan Commission. We haven't laid out the exact scheduling at this point. Once we get under contract, we'll put together a full schedule of when's going to happen and dates and such.
Okay, so now we need to, any comments? So we can.
I'll move approval of resolution R116-23.
Second.
All those in favor of the resolution, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carried.
Okay.
Approved. Okay, next one.
I'll also move approval of resolution R117-23.
Second.
All those in favor of the resolution, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries.
I'll move approval of resolution R118-23.
Do you want me to talk a little bit about that one?
Oh, Jay, we need to still talk about?
Yeah. I think it's great that we let's roll.
Keep going.
Let's just keep right on going. But
I thought there were 3 pieces there.
there is, and I didn't jump into this. So R118 is a request to extend the FUDA, or the South Stoner South Stoner Prairie Neighborhood Plan, slightly to the east. The comp plan allows us to do this, but it needs to go to Plan Commission and Council to extend. There's some specific requirements, and the big thing is that we need to show that it can be serviced by sewer. And yes, this area can. And so staff is recommending to extend, I'm sorry, I didn't put that up. Staff is just recommending to extend the study area slightly to the east, in that blue area. I will pull up, we approved for these, actually there's 5 parcels. This is where the conditional use permit is for the quarry. So it's that parcel, this parcel, this parcel, this parcel, this parcel. The current FUDA boundaries kind of cut these 240s in half. And so what this resolution would do is allow us to extend the FUDA boundary to the existing urban service area shown in red, and then over to the O'Brien Solar Farm. So this is the Edgewood College site here. That is already in the urban service area. So from staff's perspective, it just makes sense to extend that FUDA to this boundary, and then it would allow that area to be brought into the urban service area eventually. So. Ag and Rural approved.
Okay. Any comments, questions? No? Okay.
I guess, I must have read the packet wrong. So it has gone through study that it can sustain gravity service? Mm-hmm. And so we need to do that, and we've done that. So we do want to include it as part of the future. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who's gonna move it?
Do we have a first and a second already?
No, we don't have.
No, I got
Oh, you got caught, okay.
I jumped the gun.
I'll move approval of resolution R-118-23.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor of the resolution, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The resolution carries. So, okay, great. Next one.
Well, actually, unfortunately, we've got I had to add one more. Okay, so K is R-14923, and this is related to the plat that we've already approved. This is to take us through the process for abandoning the current Blaney Road. So this is the initial step in doing this process was a referral out to council, from council, and they're referring to Plan Commission. And then we will be doing some public notices, and it will allow to vacate Blaney Road. The current Blaney Road doesn't quite match up where the proposed new street is. So, staff recommends approval of R-
I move to approve resolution R-149-23.
Second.
All those in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution carries. Okay. Next one.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good morning.
Yeah. So this is a public works one, and this is for the reconstruction of Sain between East Sherrill and then up to West Clayton. And will allow the city to go into negotiation with property owners if they need to, they are going to need to get a little more private property for the redevelopment. It's actually two little slivers, it's not a big, a big area, but I guess I can probably kind of show what that looks like. So this resolution just empowers the city to work with the landowners to acquire a couple strips of land as part of the reconstruction.
It doesn't impact any residences or current buildings or?
It's not gonna, it looks to me that it might take some pieces of current residential lots, but they're pretty narrow.
But no structures?
No.
It's all just a couple feet of your lot here and there?
Yeah.
That's what I figured. Thank you. Okay. You can have a little mine if you wanted.
So staff recommends approval, and it'll allow the city to just approach the property owners with information and offers. Nobody has any intentions of condemnation or anything, but.
It's eminent domain, right?
It could be if, negotiations did not proceed well, but
It's
I would.
pedestrian, vehicle, and bike traffic, it's a plus, so, yeah.
Okay,
I'll move to approve resolution R-154-23.
I'll second.
all those in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Any opposed?
One more late addition. This is the late addition, our last one. Public Works has a tight timeline to address this one. And so this is an existing subdivision improvement agreement for Promega for their Usona development, just kind of to the north of us. And they are obligated under the subdivision improvement agreement to put in sidewalk that would extend from, I guess I have to get a map. But I think she has a map in there, right? Okay. So what this amendment to the subdivision agreement would allow Promega to phase in the bike path and sidewalk over the next 2 years. So this has actually been in negotiation for quite some time.
This is an existing area that they're adding, or is this all new?
This is all new, right? Yeah,
So-
I can, so they're building the Usona building, and I'll bring that up for you. This way. It's a big, big building. Yeah, so there was the house way back in the woods, but now they're building the big Usona building back here off of Woods Hollow and Gunflint Trail. And as part of that development, there's an agreement, a subdivision improvement agreement. And what Promega is asking is to just phase the installation of the bike path and sidewalk. And staff has been working with them to work through a phasing plan. It will get built, it just.
But this is a very sore point on my part with
Okay.
the city of Fitchburg. I walk, it's not even my dog, it's my daughter-in-law's dog. But there's no sidewalks in Jamestown. So I'm literally walking between trucks that are parked in the lot, and when I get to Madison, there's sidewalks. And then you can see, I know when I'm back in Fitchburg, because the sidewalk ends.
Yeah, there are some.
And in Jamestown area, and there's a couple, yeah.
We can
by the
start
park.
a campaign, the sidewalk.
Huh? But what
Good
I'm,
luck.
I didn't hear, but is anybody, how's pedestrian access?
No, I'm gonna tell you, there are sidewalk in the other side.
Oh, okay,
You know, because you have the school and then, you know, the roundabout and there
okay,
are,
never mind.
yeah, there is sidewalk there, yeah.
So when would they have to put it in if we didn't agree to the phasing? I mean, what's the current requirement?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Infill sidewalks have always been a very, very hot and debated item in the city.
I live on a cul-
That's right, but I think you're getting at the root of the question is like, what is this doing? Like, where are we at? I'm still not quite sure what we're voting on with this one.
We're voting on approving the First Amendment to this subdivision agreement. We're voting to see, you're voting to see if you agree with this agreement, to phase these sidewalks.
Yeah. That they can
Can
be,
you explain where these sidewalks are? Because I'm super confused where they would even be.
They would run, I don't know if you can see my cursor.
Yeah,
Yeah, they'll run on this side.
just run on the south side of Gunflint and
yeah.
Norcross.
Saying on the other side, there's like.
I'm so
No
sorry.
one-
Poor Zach. I don't have, yes. So, oh my gosh, so eventually it would come up here, so here's Glacier Valley, can you see that okay?
Yeah, I mean, there's no sidewalks once you get up there anyway, so.
Well, I think
On the other
there's
side,
there's
yeah.
something running along here.
You have the bike
No,
path.
I'm saying, once you get up to the T intersection, the sidewalk goes nowhere. You're walking on the road there.
Right,
yeah, yeah,
not
yeah,
on Glacier
yeah.
Valley, there is
Yeah.
a sidewalk, yeah. So
So,
the
I would have no
proposal
concern
is to
putting
run
no
the
one's
sidewalk
road.
along
Yeah.
this side of.
I've walked there plenty of times. There's like nobody on that other than the bike trail.
Well, I think I guess I wasn't in these discussions, but ProMega just wants to have a little bit more time to work through. There's trees they'd have to remove, and they just want a little more time to work through getting that extension all the way through.
I don't even know if it's worth having that sidewalk.
That's where ProMega is too.
That's my thing. I mean, there's not gonna be any more housing development out here. It's not like we're gonna see a bunch of new people walking around out there.
So is existing sidewalk allow enough space for bikers too?
Yeah, it's a bike path that goes through behind the, you know, the school, you know?
Yeah, you can see there's this bike path.
Yeah,
That's Capital City Trail. I mean, that's a major bike path.
yeah.
Okay, I was looking at the yellow.
And
Across
then you
from
have
the
sidewalk in
proposed
front of the
sidewalk.
school and
Okay.
all around the roundabout.
What do you think of the cost of the concrete and taking out the?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why do we
I mean,
need.
we're taking the trees out. Just keep the trees there.
Yeah.
That's why I love Fitchburg, where you say if any kind of new development, you have to have sidewalk, but we also love our trees, and we love our green spaces, but it's like, okay, are we talking on both sides?
I don't know who imposed them to have the sidewalk. It was the city?
Yeah, it's not a subdivision. That's what I don't get. It's not like it's a housing subdivision. It's a business.
Right, what's the destination? And who's gonna be using that sidewalk for the destination? And I would agree that it's unnecessary.
I don't have a good answer.
If this gives them a delay, I'm happy at 9:21 to say I am moving to approve resolution R-160-23.
Second.
Well,
Thank you,
okay. All those in favor of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. The resolution carries. So,
I'm sure that's a very important note.
do we have any, thank you guys. So do we have any report from the department or any announcement?
Not today.
Announcement?
Yeah, I told most of you, but I'm retiring, resigning. I've, a year ago, I got something from my doctor and I thought I'd stick it out a little bit longer, but I think I'm pretty much time to go. So
This is your
I
last?
mentioned, yeah, this is my last meeting of this. Now there's opening on transportation for somebody,
Oh, yeah.
which I've been filling in for we have a plan commission representative. I've been on city commissions, committees, boards, and whatever since 2000, so we were sitting on cable commission when we were suing charter. I was in the library oversight when we were planning the library. I've been on Public Works for a year before I came into this group, so. And I appreciate everybody that I work with. You guys have great stuff going on, and I'll miss you all.
So I want to
And I'm
say.
buying the first round, by the way, if anybody's interested.
So I want to say thank you, we share, I shared with you Plan Commission way back with Carol. So I want to say thank you for your service and we're gonna miss you and, you know what I mean, and we wish you the best for your health and everything, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, so I need them, so I don't know, you have people that you know that they qualify for these commissions, they can apply online. So I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourning at 9:23. Thank you very much, people.
Thank you.